Regulatory Commission, joined by my fellow commissioners, Commissioner David Ziegner to my left, Commissioner Sarah Freeman, Commissioner Wes Bennett, and Commissioner David Valletta to the right. Thank you for being here today. Counselor Fine from the Office of the Utility Consumer Counselor, along with Chief of Staff Anthony Swinger, are over here to the left. We're also joined by AES executives Ken Zagzebski, who is Chief Executive Officer, and Brandy Davis-Handy, who is President of the company. We appreciate your time today as we receive a report from AES regarding the ACE project and the system of issues that have been experienced after the system was put into full operation on November 6, 2023. From that date until today, the IURC Consumer Affairs Division has received 473 complaints concerning electric utilities. Of those complaints, AES customers submitted 272 of those total complaints. Those complaints have spanned a broad spectrum of services, including billing, payment, and new service functions, to highlight a few. Our Consumer Affairs Division has heard from customers who have been billed multiple times in a month, have not received bill for months, have struggled to get new service started, and have had long customer wait times for service. Now, turning the page, I wanted to introduce Deborah Mattingly. Deborah, if you wouldn't, Deborah Mattingly Huber, she's in charge of our Customer Services Division. For those of you who may be in the audience who are a member of the public, welcome here. If you have a specific complaint about specific service, I would encourage you to work with Deborah. We have a room just next to us, close to where the TV reporters are, and they'd be happy to work with you on any individualized complaint. So, yes, Deborah, if you wouldn't mind. As part of the most recent base rate order, the Commission has set a requirement for AES to file monthly reports updating the Commission on the status of the ACE project. In addition to that reporting, the Commission set additional questions to AES to address in the first report, which was filed on May 17th. After the initial report, additional clarity was needed on the impact to customers, the specific timeline to stabilization, and how AES was working to fix issues customers were experiencing. The Commission sent AES more questions regarding the ACE project and invited AES to present to the Commission at this public meeting, where their efforts stood and where they expect the remaining issues to be resolved and when they would be resolved. The ACE project has been off to a little bit of a rocky start, and the Commission is trying to understand and is struggling on what went wrong and why it's taken so long to fix it. Now, for today's run of meeting, it's going to be very brief. Again, I've mentioned to the commissioners, this is a meeting, so this is meant to be kind of a dialogue. The Consumer Counselor's Office here is representing the public, and they are able to ask questions as well. But our hope is that AES will get this kicked off, make your presentation, and be available to question as the presentations are being made. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Ken Zagzebski, and Ken is the CEO of the company, and then I think in turn he's going to turn it over to Brandy.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Appreciate it, Commission. So first of all, appreciate the opportunity to talk about the issue and have an open dialogue on it. I think the format of this meeting is one that will be conducive to helping understand our ACE project. And I'm just going to take 2 or 3 minutes to provide context before I turn over to Brandy. But if you take a look at our business plan and what we believe is essential for us to be a great utility, it starts with reliability, having few outages possible, and when you have an outage, short duration and high power quality issues, or power quality, so you don't have issues with power quality. It's also sustainability in terms of the mission of our company is to accelerate the future of energy. And improving lives. We believe that's not only it's equally true for our current customers and communities as well as future generations, and we take that very seriously at AES. I think that the third pillar is the economic and community development and leadership in this community, and it's something that We want to be extremely involved. We want to be very active in leading the company and the growth of leading the community in terms of the growth of the community and what we do both with community involvement and what we do in terms of the quality of life, but also in the economic development. And then the fourth pillar would be customer experience. And it's something we want to provide great customer experience. And as I believe the commission is aware of, we didn't feel we could do that with the legacy system we had prior to the implementation of the ACE system. The legacy system was over 25 years old. It had a COBOL format that was built on and really couldn't address the growing needs of and requirements and expectations of our customers. And you take a look at what customers compare us to, and again, I'm saying things you probably have heard many times before, but they take a look at other websites, other formats, and have that same expectation for us. And so that's what we wanted to do with the ACE system. It can do many things that it will be able to, and you look at how much integrations it has and what we needed to do in terms of talking to other systems, and something as simple as just proactively reaching out with notifications to customers or notifying them of outage status and things like that. To have a newer system was essential to do that. Performance to date, and when we reflect on, we're going to talk about this a lot today. Performance to date, I would say that in many aspects, it went well given the sophistication and the complexity of the system itself. So we got nearly 90% of our customers did not have any issues with the system. We provided the service, and so things went well for a large percentage of the population. But for the 61,000 customers who did have issues, we understand the frustrations. You know, I can speak for myself personally. You call somebody and you can't pay a bill and you got to go back a second time where it's wrong. It's very frustrating. And that's something that we're dedicated to resolve. I think we brought a team of not only people at the front desk, people behind me, just a lot of experts, but we as a leadership team, we meet multiple times each week trying to address and resolve these issues as fast as possible and take it extremely seriously, because we understand any customer that's frustrated is an issue we got to address. And so that's our focus. I think in the meeting today, we'll address the questions that we were given. In addition to that, talk about the progress we made on resolving the issues, but also very openly and very transparently talk about the issues that exist and our progress towards alleviating those and addressing those. So again, I appreciate the forum to have an open dialogue, a transparent dialogue, so we can talk about the system itself, where we've been and where we're going with it. And with that, Brandy, I'll turn over to you.
All right, thank you, Ken. And I echo Ken's sentiments. Thank you to both the commissioners and the representatives here today from the OUCC for this opportunity to address the current state of the system, and most importantly, what AES Indiana and our people are doing behind the scenes to resolve any existing issues. I am joined this afternoon, with, to the left of me is David Orr, who serves as our Chief Digital Officer for AES globally. David is also based and resides here in Indiana. And then to the right of me is Vanessa Barbarisi, who serves as our Director of Transformation Strategy. And Vanessa's team has been the team that's been solely focused on not just the planning, but the implementation of our billing system, which throughout this presentation, you may also hear us refer to as CIS, which is Customer Information System. And then to the right of Vanessa is Chris Ruley, and Chris serves as our Director of Customer Care, and that includes both our front and back office functions of the customer team. Also, as Ken referenced, behind me we have a team of, and also listed on this slide, a team of subject matter experts who are willing and ready to jump in at any time once we get to the Q&A portion of today's meeting, if that is necessary. Throughout this presentation, we look forward to answering openly and transparently any questions from the Commission or from the OUCC. We have also provided in advance answers to questions that were previously submitted to us in written format, and I believe that those have already been distributed. Also, one thing I want to note that for the benefit of the flow of this presentation, we have added to the bottom of each slide, starting the slides that you'll see coming forward, we have put an identifier at the bottom of each slide showing the number. It corresponds to the question for the questions that were submitted to AES Indiana, just for the flow of the presentation, so that we don't disrupt the presentation, that you know exactly which question we are answering and responding to on each corresponding slide. I want to go ahead and start us off by acknowledging that as a utility, we want to grow and partner with our customers to meet their evolving needs. And we understand that every touch point that a customer has with us, from the time that they establish service to maybe perhaps the moment that they call us to resolve a billing question or issue, to also when they reach out and they're exploring ways to manage their usage. All of these touch points collectively shape the overall customer experience. And the billing process is a large driver of that customer experience and is shaped by the foundational systems that we utilize internally to manage accounts and interact with our customers. And so in order for these experiences for our customers to evolve, the decision was made, as Ken noted earlier, to invest and upgrade our core systems and records. And this investment, we believe, was necessary if we're to evolve with our customers. Our previous customer information system was put in place in 1996. And I like to use the analogy of a cell phone. If we think of what technology, what cell phone we had in 1996, based on some of the apps that we use today to really get through our day-to-day needs, I don't know if it would be possible to take those applications and download them to technology that served us in 1996. And so that's kind of, for me, the easiest way to explain really the necessity. If we want to offer the products and services and have the personalized transactions that our customers need, it was a necessity to make an investment in this technology. Not making the change would have meant for our customers our inability to offer new ways of serving them, or offerings, for example, like Apple Pay and Google Pay, which is something that a lot of customers are used to. Ken mentioned we get compared to not just other utilities, whether it be electric or water or gas, but we're compared to services that customers receive day in and day out. We also would not have been able to integrate with newer technologies as easily, and additionally, there would have been lack of integration with new systems, resulting in inefficient data to make better informed decisions. The new system will allow us to offer our customers digital channels of choice and better self-service options. Now, the process that we took with this implementation is one that I would characterize as prudent and intentional. The project itself was very complex, and we're going to talk a lot, especially when we get to Vanessa's portion, about some of the complexities of this implementation. It was complex yet necessary. And knowing that this would be a complex implementation, we contracted with national experts who are leading other utilities in a very similar implementation across the United States, and some right here in the state of Indiana. We were supported by these experts in our planning stage, implementation, and today as we work to continue to navigate hypercare with the guidance and partnership of their expertise. And our Global Chief Digital Officer, David, is going to share more on that here momentarily. Prior to the launch, our company took steps to safeguard customers during implementation, including pre-communications with customers and stakeholders, use of increased staffing to support post-go-live activities, and a pre-planned discontinuation of late fees and disconnections. And many of these decisions that were made were not only done in the partnership with these experts, but also the collaboration that we had with similar utilities across the United States who are making or who have recently made the same implementation. Overall, this work was supported by more than 600 people. And after 3 years of development, we had key performance indicators that tracked and assessed the progress of our system's build, validation, and testing, which informed our decision to go live on November 6, 2023, fully operational. I'd like to now introduce our Chief Digital Officer, David Orr, to share more about those who worked alongside us in supporting this work and the complexities that we saw.
Thank you, Brandy. Implementing a CIS is a highly complex project, as Brandy mentioned. It touches virtually every front office and back office process, and it's not something utilities do on a routine basis. In fact, the last time AES Indiana had done this was 27 years ago when it implemented a COBOL-based mainframe system. To aid in our effort to transform the utility, we leveraged the partnership and we leveraged the expertise and knowledge of Accenture. We chose Accenture through a competitive RFP process where we also selected SAP as our prime platform. SAP is a worldwide leader in CIS platforms, and Accenture is widely recognized as a leader of these implementer of these platforms, both worldwide as well as in the United States, as well as having completed recent implementations in Indiana. With that, I'll hand it over to Vanessa, our Utility Transformation Strategy Director, to tell us more about the project.
Thank you, David. As Brandy and David
I
shared.
apologize for interrupting, and this may cross over both of you guys' presentation, but part of the rationale for choosing Accenture and SAP is to complement the bigness of the project, the complexity of the project. And I know that we've asked a number of different ways about testing the platform before it was actually gone live. Did Accenture or SAP anticipate that we'd have up to 60,000 complaints based on what their experience had been in the United States or around the world?
Would you like to take that, or I'm happy to? Okay. Well, we anticipated that there may be challenges within the new system. We did not forecast anticipated numbers nor receive anticipated numbers of potential issues or customers. We will talk further about the testing that was conducted.
Along those lines, also, given that they had just interacted with other Indiana-based customers, what were the results of those projects? How were they deployed? Were they successful? Problems? And depending on your answer to that, why did you choose to go ahead? Sure, happy to. What I was asking was, given that Accenture and SAP had also conducted projects with other Indiana customers, what were the outcomes of those? Were the deployments successful? And if they weren't, why did AES go ahead and move forward with those vendors?
I'll jump in there and say I don't know if we're equipped to characterize whether the implementation of the other Indiana utilities were successful. I will tell you, and I personally have spent time with leadership of one specific utility in Indiana that went through the same implementation, utilizing the same SAP platform. And I would say one of my biggest ahas, and Vanessa spent time with the same utility as well, a lot of our time was focused on how to ensure that our people, we were really concerned about the impacts to our front office, the back office. And so we learned a lot in terms of how they staffed and what we know. And one of the things that we're going to talk about today were some of the complexities as it relates to specifically even C&I customers. What we've found in this implementation, that the more complex the bill, the more it was open to some of the issues that we've experienced. And so we did spend a lot of time, at least from my vantage point, I did, more focused on how to ensure that our people were prepared for this transformation, learning what other utilities did from a training standpoint, but really making sure that we had the proper staffing. And I don't know if Vanessa or David want to add to that.
I will add to that, Brandy, thank you. So during our selection process, we did reach out to those other partners who were using Accenture to implement and got feedback as part of that process.
The feedback was?
The feedback was that they were doing a good job. There were challenges, like there are challenges with any highly complex project, but there was nothing that would deter us from choosing Accenture based on the reputation and the feedback we got.
Well, and before I look at Commissioner Bennett for his question, if that's okay, Mr. Chairman, I have one follow-up. Were those other utilities also looking primarily at how SAP and Accenture worked within their office for their employees and then for their C&I customers also? Was that their primary focus as well, or had they also looked at the bulk of their customer base that has smaller accounts but residential customers?
When we talked to the third parties, we talked about the entire implementation. We did not determine various customer base. We looked at how Accenture was performing, what their capabilities were against that business's stated goal.
Thank you, Mr. Orr. Quick comment. What I've heard so far is it's complex. We get that. We get that it's complex. It took you 3 years to implement it. But this is your expertise. I mean, this is what you do. Is 10% error, is that acceptable? That's what isn't it about, didn't you have about 10% of your customers that are affected?
I will jump in and say, absolutely. As a company, we are focused on getting to resolution for the remaining customers. So it's roughly around 12% of customers today that are impacted. And so,
What did it start out?
or I'm sorry, 3% that are impacted today. At the height, so if we were to look at from November 6th to today, looking at the totality of 520,000 customers across both residential and CNI, a total, I apologize, I mischaracterized that, a total of 12% have been impacted. No more than 10% at any given time has been impacted. I think that was previously a part of one of our responses submitted to the commission. At this time, to date, we're around 3% of our customers that are still impacted.
So during your due diligence, during your planning, was there a target? Say we want to be within 5%, 3%? Is 12%? Was that a target? I mean, what was your target knowing that there's going to be complications?
Primarily, targets are set based on the systems. As we were measuring the key performance indicators, we weren't looking at a totality of forecasted customer count, but rather at, and this is the meter to cash process that you see displayed under the new systems, where are we with interval reads? Where are we with billing performance? And we were looking at those thresholds. Those thresholds indicated that we would be able to operate the system holistically without significant negative impact to customers.
So you did not try to determine the percentage or the number of customers that might be negatively impacted. Is that
correct? There was not a customer count forecasted. I am not sure how that would have been conducted, nor have I seen that done by other industry leaders in this space.
Thank you.
Shall I continue, or are there other questions? Okay. Thank you for the questions. To reiterate what Brandy said, again, we conducted significant testing and validation of the system in preparation in going live. In my next slide, I will go deeper into that because there were multiple waves in which we conducted both product testing, and we conducted 4 rounds of this. We would then go into something called operational readiness testing. This is important because this is the batch and billing system testing on a nightly basis. We also conducted 3 rounds of what's known as dress rehearsal. This is when you are practicing the data conversion and cutover process, which is a significant part of the transformation in taking the legacy systems down and transforming the data into SAP and bringing them up against the field service management, meter data management, the customer service portal, as well as the customer information system, which contains the core billing. Thank you, Brandy. The testing proved out that we would be able to go live and put the system into service, which we did on November 6th, then determining it used and useful. Since going live, we then use a system of record in a work management process, which is the ticketing system, which was referenced in the questions and answers then returned. These tickets are not inherently a flaw in the system, but rather a way to measure and maintain the technical need and support across internal and then any external facing impacts. So for example, I'll call your attention to where it says reporting, technical, and then access or digital requests. Those are roughly 40% of the tickets where this governance process allows us to understand who needs in the system and what information is required for those people to conduct the jobs that they need to do in the new setup. In the table to the right, at the top. We then put those categories into other to then show how this, against those 4 core systems mentioned, how these tickets then showed up. Again, these could end up with system access requests, could be also an opportunity to train personnel to better understand how to use the system, or it could be an issue that needs to be resolved. Since reporting these figures to you on May 10th, because this is a proper governance process that we maintain and had for the legacy system and will continue to have for work management of the new systems, we have had 66 tickets that were opened between May 10th and now. And you can see the current status of those tickets here.
Just to be clear, the number of tickets does not necessarily reflect number of customers. Customer numbers are inside the classification of tickets, correct?
Correct, Commissioner. And on the next slide, we'll actually look at some of those estimates.
At some point during your presentation, are you going to compare what you've experienced in the cutover with other utilities that are using the same system?
We really focused on the emphasis of our customer base and how we are performing for our customers and have not done comparative analysis with other utilities.
So you don't know if other utilities have experienced the same level of concerns or issues?
We have done that research. We did not, put it into the presentation today. We do understand that other utilities have nationwide had a similar performance with their customers as they've gone through a transformation like this.
Okay, please translate that for me. They experience the level of issues you have?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Follow up then, is that something you were aware of at any point during this process? And if so, when? When did you learn about counterparts across the country having this same experience?
Brandy, would you like to take that? Because that was a recent question.
Yeah, I can, so no. And part of my response earlier saying, I can speak to the personal conversations that I've had, and a lot of the conversations that I personally have had in the last couple of weeks have been a result of some of the experience that we've had. And so knowing that there were other utilities going through, having just gone through similar implementations, and I would say between myself and Vanessa, I think have done our due diligence and just reaching out and honestly comparing notes and better understanding if what we were seeing was specific to AES Indiana. And so I don't want to characterize this as saying that this is a widespread issue, but I have talked to other utilities and leaders who have gone through something similar. I think your direct question was, did I have that information prior to go live on November 6th? The answer is no.
As discussed on the previous slide, this is information regarding our work management and workflow process. On the top table, you'll see the categorization based on the level of ticket. Because this is also for those system requests, training opportunities, roughly 70% of the tickets that were opened are in a low to medium category. The critical, I'll go into greater detail on the next slide, but critical and high were used based on a prioritization matrix, which is also referenced in the May compliance report. We use that data collectively. The project team worked and guided the business operators within the system and also took in data if a customer called or complained to help support in opening a ticket. At the time of opening a ticket, one of the questions that is asked is, what is the estimated customer impact? Because the full investigation has not been conducted at that time, but rather this helps trigger the investigation and look for solution or understanding or follow-up in the request. The estimate helps us gauge that level. The investigation then proves what the current number is of customers impacted, and that's where, to reference, the 61,000, and it's 61,772 customers to date have been impacted. That information comes from the customer information system directly as our source of record. When we look at the target of critical tickets, what we see is that we have been able to close over 170 tickets to date. We do have roughly 8 that remain open, and those...
Would you mind, for folks here at the bench and elsewhere, what constitutes a critical ticket? What categories are involved? Because as I kind of outlined at the start of this meeting, it's incredibly important to be good stewards of people's money. And just the mere fact that we were getting complaints, customers who had their accounts, their bank accounts, debited more than one time in a month seems to be a critical issue to me. Is that critical to AES, and is it in that category? And what else is in that category?
Yeah. So there's a lot in the statement that you made, and one of the items that you call upon or touch upon are customers that were debited multiple times. I do touch on that later in the presentation, but I can go forward to that slide if you'd rather address it now.
Yeah, why don't you, if you don't mind?
No problem. That in particular was not directly tied to the new systems, but rather from a third-party provider.
And which slide is that? I'm sorry. It's 23. Yeah, thank you.
So we'll touch upon that, and then the other part of your question was how we categorize a critical ticket and some of the information we use there. One experience that we had and that the IURC received an escalation on was of that multiple charges, and we have a third-party provider. This would have taken place whether it were in the legacy systems or the new systems, because this had to do with their technology and not with ours. If a customer had gone to pay, there was a lag in the system. If they pushed the button multiple times to try and submit, not realizing that the transaction had started, there wasn't a backstop within the third-party provider system to stop the debiting multiple times, that transaction went through. We looked into it. We worked quickly with the third-party provider. Roughly 100 customers were impacted. All of them received a credit back for any amounts charged, and we worked directly with the customer that had escalated to ensure all refunds and satisfaction were met.
So the only customers that were in that category were ones who pushed the debit button more than once while the internet was still spinning around?
For that specific issue that you are referencing, that is correct.
It wasn't a matter of having an automatic check withdrawn from their account more than once.
That would be a separate process. If there were a direct debit customer, and if...
So we got contacted by people who had that happen to them as well, where they just are set up on a basis where you would draw the money from their account regularly, and they got debited. So it wasn't a matter of them pushing the button. So is that critical, and how often did that happen?
That is critical, and there has been a stop put in place once we understood what was taking place. As a defect or an issue, apologies, was resolved within the system, it would sometimes clear, and then a customer, if they had direct debit, would have multiple months in which they had payments pending because the payment flow was then released. So they were directly tied to the consumption in which the consumer had for their home or business. Once we understood that that was taking place, we put a stop payment. We have roughly 758 customers that have that scenario right now. We're holding their accounts as to not release that, so that will not take place again. and have an outreach campaign to work directly with them.
I don't mean to badger you, but, okay, you started out because of somebody who's proactively paying their bill, and they push the button a couple of times while the internet's still spinning around churning the transaction.
Correct.
That could be an issue. And you said that was a part of the legacy that would have happened with the legacy system.
Because that was from a third-party provider.
The transaction that we're talking about now, is that also incumbent on a legacy transaction basis, or is that part of the new system, the ACE system?
That is a new system piece, and what it references are, for example, if you have a bill that was withheld in a process called out of balance, and out of balance is something industry-wide. It is a quality check that you use to hold bills, and we use it in legacy, and again, across the industry, you use this quality check to say if the line items aren't totaling or if there is something not represented, you hold it in this quality check. When we were able to resolve some of the issues, it would then process the payments required for February or March, and that may be what you heard about. We had interpreted the question to reference this scenario based on the wording.
Commissioner
Chairman.
Bennett?
Yeah, thank you. Mrs. Barbarisi, both of those scenarios seem to me to be fairly unsophisticated in today's technology. Would you characterize it in, I mean, they're pretty much fundamental transactions. Why the problems with, again, in my mind, and feel free to correct me or challenge me on that. I'm not going to hurt my feelings. Those types of transactions seem to be fairly fundamental in today's banking and payment process. Why the problems? And it seems to have taken months, not months, to solve this problem, these two problems, not just weeks.
I'd like to jump in, and Vanessa can add. I think to address kind of the first comment on, I would characterize the process that we have as one that is thorough and intentional. And I think by the amount, if you look at the progress from November 6th to where we are today, the amount of out-of-balance bills that we've seen, that actually speaks to the fact that a process that we've put in place to safeguard our customers, to ensure that we're not sending out inaccurate bills, is correctly working, and that's one piece. As it relates to what happened, and I'll go back with the 758 customers who are on auto pay, and that is unfortunate that happened, because originally those bills were stopped because we found something that was wrong in the process. And so for those customers, for example, let's say you didn't receive a bill in January, February, March, and you were on auto pay. When we were able to resolve those issues, and I would say the part that happened that impacted our customers was, and it wasn't an extra debit, but those 3 months of payment went at the same time. And that's something that we don't want to do. We do not want to catch our customers off guard. And for that reason, we've communicated, and we continue to communicate with customers. We've offered not just, if there was a situation where someone's account was overdrawn, we worked to make sure that they knew that they could call us and that those were fees that we would take care of. And I would also say, understanding from the first scenario of the 100 customers that Vanessa spoke to, I've personally reached out to the president of our bank to ensure that she understood what was happening with our system and that we could do everything that we could in our power, and we could work in partnership with them to accelerate refunds. And so I hope that answers your question.
Oh, Brandy, it does, but I'm not questioning the level of customer service. I'm questioning the fact that you had problems from the get-go, and it has taken a while to solve those problems, and so that's my main concern is why the extensive number of problems to begin with on some basic fundamental types of transactions. Some of these, I mean, I don't know how sophisticated a residential bill can get. I'm sure it can, but certainly not as complicated as maybe a CNI customer, but the number of problems that you had from the very get-go after doing 3 years of due diligence and testing to have this number of problems for this long a time.
Billing systems, by the nature of the various types and diverse types of customers that we have, the diversity of the rate codes are actually very complex. And I think going back to 3 years ago, we entered this project by seeking out some of the best experts, we believe, who are working inside other utilities across the nation with these implementations for that reason. This is not our expertise. We have expertise as it relates to the service, the reliable service that we provide, the billing, but actually putting in a system, replacing a system that, as David mentioned, 27 years old. That's why we've worked with over 41 vendors, and I'm not pointing fingers and placing blame. This happened to AES Indiana customers, and on behalf of AES Indiana, we are the sole ones who have to ensure that this system is operating in a way that not only we expect, but our customers deserve. But I do want to note that that is why that we made the decision early on to seek out the partnership of national experts.
Did those national experts meet your expectations 100%?
I would characterize it as this has been a challenging project and implementation, but I would also say that those experts told us, and many of the utilities and others in the industry, one of the most complex things that you can do is the implementation of one of these systems. So I don't want to say that we went through this or started this not knowing that there weren't going to be issues. I think that you plan for those issues. If you were to ask me if I thought that we would be where we are today, no. However, I do think that we are very close to reaching stabilization. We will make this, we will get this in the right path.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. Did your stakeholders that you worked with meet your expectations?
I still think we have to do a root cause investigation to understand kind of what the causes of it are, why we are where we are. If you take a look back on November 6th, and Vanessa probably has it, I can't tell you the number of go-live decisions we've made, weekends, evenings, every time taking a look at it, and Brandy and I participated in those. And at that time, it was our understanding we would not have this level of issues. And so I think that some of them came, I don't want to say unexpected, but the volume did it, and then our next step was to make sure that we addressed them in a priority way. But in terms of the evaluation of the integrator, that has not taken place, so we're not able to speak to that yet until we understand.
Has AES paid all their vendors 100% of what the contracts have stated?
At this point, no, we have not paid all 100% of the vendors.
Thank you. Commissioner Valletta.
Thank you. I have some questions about the procurement. Ms. Barbarisi, when you testified in the rate case, your words were, you said that using an enterprise focus to address the needs of all three of AES utilities was more economical for each company than if each of the three utilities had implemented this work independently. And so my understanding of that is that you, instead of buying one system for each of the three AES utilities, you have one system you're using across all three. Do I have that right?
We used a process to support standardization across the three utilities, and the design, build, and validate phase of the program was conducted collectively. The ultimate instance that El Salvador will be in will be separate from the instance that the U.S. will be in.
So has the system gone live in AES, Ohio, or in El Salvador?
No, it has not.
But when you were testing it across all three?
We conducted design, build, and validate collectively. We have had separate product test and operational readiness testing.
So when you did the testing you've been talking about today, that was just specifically for AES Indiana?
Correct. There are some objects, because they were built with standardization, that are the same between the utilities, and that product testing is done collectively, but ultimately the product testing was done on behalf of AES Indiana and separately for other utilities.
Can you elaborate? How is this AES universal focus best for for our specific interest, which is AES Indiana customers, not El Salvador or AES Ohio?
We conducted analysis supported by our vendor partner or system integrator that demonstrated the total cost of putting in those 4 systems along with the integrations to other partners, vendor partners like the payment provider and others. This was more cost effective. It's similar to what we have seen other utilities do, both locally and nationally.
So what non-economic considerations for AES Indiana's specific needs were considered in the selection process?
Could you elaborate on what you mean by non-economic?
Well, you just said basically that it was a better deal to do one system than to do one for each utility. So did you factor in any Indiana-specific factors that are things unique to the AES system in your decision to pick one system for all 3 utilities?
Yes, that was a part of the consideration. And David can also talk to the vendor selection process and how we brought the utilities together, but also made distinct decision-making around how AES Indiana operates as a vertically integrated business. It is a different business model than the other business models that we have, and those considerations are important for the operation of the system, and we're there the entire time. David, I'm not sure if you have anything you'd add.
No, so for AES Indiana and AES Ohio and El Salvador, we ensured that the SAP platform would meet the unique needs of each jurisdiction. And so that was where we went through from a non-economic perspective. Will the platform meet the needs of how we operate in Indiana as well as all the other jurisdictions?
Thank you.
Commissioner Ziegner.
You have indicated that you have done your due diligence to make sure that the customers, AES customers that are affected by this, are made whole or issues resolved. But what about the impact that this situation had on the customers and their credit ratings and stuff like that? That's just because you made them whole doesn't mean their credit ratings are made whole, so to speak.
So to directly respond to that question, I have not received any specific, I'm not aware of any specific information from a customer as it relates to the impact of the billing. And all situations are they're not all the same. So as it relates to a customer that their credit score was impacted, that is information that's not in front of me. I can speak broadly and say out of our 520,000 customers, nearly 90,000. So we said, in total, 12% were impacted. And in all of the impacts look different. What we do know is that the most significant impact were customers who did not receive a bill. And so as you look at that total number, which is a little more than 61,000 customers, from those 61,000 customers, the biggest impact were those who did not receive a bill. For impacts beyond that, that's where it's really important for our customers to reach out to us. We have a process to review and respond to each individual customer issue or concern. And so the one that you're characterizing is one that I personally have not been involved in a complaint that looked like that.
If I might, our focus has remained on continuity of service to our customers and ensuring that we maintain power providing. The billing system and the out-of-balance check, the delay in receiving their bill is a quality check, and we want to get the quality right and issue those bills in a timely manner. We owe that to our customers, but same as what Brandy had indicated, I have not heard that direct complaint before.
Well, I understand that, but I'm curious whether obviously you're not going to reach out to the credit agencies for specific customers, but have you made the credit agencies aware of the billing issues so that they're aware of it?
I think to answer your question, we have not been pursuing any type of collection on these since November 6th, since we went live. We just recently signed. Oh, sorry, can you hear me okay?
Just bring the microphone closer to you, because it's the only way people streaming can hear you.
Thank you. So we have not had a third-party collection agency reporting to credit bureau since we went live on November the 6th. And we do not have a plan at the moment to re-engage that until at which time we have reached stabilization as we're talking about today. So we should not have had any customers impacted, negatively impacted on their credit rating. And if there are instances of that, we'd certainly be welcome to review them.
I'll follow up with one more question. I don't see any other bench questions at this moment. I do very much appreciate that we did get a preview of what you were going to be attempting. You, like other utilities in Indiana, did come to us and to the OUCC before you were rolling this out. And I will say with all honesty, I don't think anybody in this room thought that there were going to be this number of mistakes. Now, whether those were legacy-born or part of the SAP platform or the integration of the complexity, I still don't know the answer to that. And I think it would be very helpful for this commission, as you get this system stabilized, to understand better what did transpire, because we have not seen this level of complaints on any transformation inside this jurisdiction that I'm aware of. So it would be most helpful to us to have follow-up once this is completed, because to me, some of the most serious ones we've already talked about, where accounts are debited or somebody's pushing a button more than once because they don't think that their internet was streaming completely, are some of the most serious ones, serious mistakes, because it could impact somebody who's living paycheck to paycheck. And, you know, they budget $100 a month, and boom, all of a sudden $300 is taken out of their account. They don't have the options. I know you're not pursuing them, but that money was taken at that point in time and could have been made eligible for something else that somebody who's living on a tight budget has difficult time managing on a regular basis. So I think one after action for this meeting, and I don't mean to interrupt or interrupt you finishing the presentation, would be for us to hear back from you on an after action report that included root causes for some of these challenges, because I don't think that you anticipated Accenture or I don't think that was a part of their RFP, that we're going to experience 61,000 customers having a problem. I don't see that marketing material working very much in a sales pitch, that, you know, this many mistakes could be made. And I'm not trying to point fingers at your vendors, but there's been a problem. And the more we understand it, the better others can operate into the future. So I don't want to speak for the entire commission, but I think everybody would be very interested in seeing after action and root cause analysis done on this.
When it gets to the volume of the 61,000, I think it's on the out-of-balance bills. Is something we're going to talk to yet. So I think we should go to that. But you take a look at where we were on prior November 6th. So on the evening of November 5th, basically, our integrator said that we're in the best shape that they had seen. And so we were very, very optimistic on that day. And then things took a turn once we saw that the out-of-balance bills became an issue. And so we were dealing with a volume issue at that point in time. And so we had to address that. You can talk about that. I think you had a slide that speaks to that. I think some of the issues you're bringing up, where it's the 725 or the 100, those are unique things that we're trying to address. I think your point, do we contact the credit agencies? I'm not aware that we've done that proactively. So there's things that we can look at that may or may not be feasible, but we can report back on those specifically, on those customers and what actions. I can say that we have a group in Chris's group that are specifically dealing with the complaints, or the issues, I should say, dealing with the billing system, and try to address each one of those individually and try to address those personally. And that's something that the team is focused on doing. But I think in the nature of what you said, Commissioner, I'm not aware of what we're doing with the credit agencies, and that's something we can look and see if something is feasible or not.
Chairman Houston, I did just want to add before Vanessa goes back to the presentation that we have made the decision prior to coming in here today that our primary focus right now is reaching stabilization, but we will conduct a formal root cause analysis with a third party. So just wanted to, respond directly to what you were saying, that is absolutely something that will happen.
I hope your lawyers are in the room too, because I just don't see this as being a marketing pitch for a positive contract with a utility that you're going to have this many. And I have no reason to doubt that you were optimistic on November 5th about what was to transpire based on what people were telling you.
I'll touch on what Ken referenced briefly. As we do show here, we have 8 critical tickets that remain open, primarily around the bill print issue. Again, maintaining the quality check of bill print and withholding those bills is to make sure we get all of the line items that should be there onto the bill and out to the customer. Even as of today, we continue to see the estimated amount of customers impacted continue to decline. You'll see referenced in that third bullet, roughly 17,000 customers. As of today, prior to coming here, we have roughly 14,000 customers. We recognize we owe it to those customers to ensure timely billing, and we're continuing to maintain that as our key focus. With that, I'll turn it over to Chris to talk about the interactions with our customers and what we are doing to support them.
Thank you, Vanessa. So I wanted to provide a brief overview of how we prepared for ACE for our employees as well as our customers. And so if you notice, we took several actions in advance of the ACE deployment. And first, as we've talked about a little bit here already today, is we consulted with multiple other utilities. And this is really to get some guidance from other utilities in terms of pre- and post-support plans for our customer care organization specifically, targeting customer service as well as billing. But we also reached out to some other third-party agencies to ask from their experience, what did they see peripherally in working with some of these utilities? And they also help to inform really how we forecast and create good processes for our customer care organization to be able to support our customers. The other thing that we did was in 2022, in advance of these solutions being implemented, was that we implemented a knowledge management system within our customer care organization. This offered customer care the ability to have step-by-step guides for every single interaction that they had and for every single bill that they would encounter to make appropriate adjustments to ensure that customers could receive their bill accurately. In addition to that, in preparation for Go Live, we employed an additional 73 customer care agents within our organization to be able to support our customers, recognizing that average handle times or call times would likely go up, and as well as the number of calls would also go up if we experienced any billing issues. We provided over 120 hours of training to our customer care workforce, including our back office functions, which are our billing and revenue management team members. And then we also developed and launched I guess I should say we pre-planned refresher training for our entire workforce, pre and post launch. So we employed all of our quality assurance analysts to monitor the impacts of ACE at Go Live and help us to determine areas where our workforce was really struggling. And so we pre-planned refresher training for those team members. We also launched our customer experience training, really founded on the principles that we aspire to deliver for our customers every single day, which is demonstrating care and dignity toward our customers, delivering them solutions who are accountable and transparent and are easy to work with. Additionally, prior to Go Live, we pre-planned and implemented over 39 different types of communications with our customers to advise of our system implementation and ensure that they had full awareness of what we were intending. We also diversified our channels to be able to offer customers more support channels than what they've been accustomed to by the introduction of web chat to our customer base to enable them to communicate with us in different ways.
Mr. Rulli?
Yes.
How many customer care agents did you have before you hired the additional 73?
107.
So you had 180. Did each of the 180 customer care agents receive 120 hours of training?
Yes.
Where are they located? If I call them, where are they located?
Primarily, they're located in Indiana. We did engage with a third-party agency to help supplement our workforce through the implementation and go live.
So you still have 180 care agents, or have you reduced that number?
No, we have not reduced the number.
But some of those are with a third-party vendor.
Correct.
Thank you.
So I mentioned that prior to the implementation, we communicated with our customers in over 39 different ways. Throughout the entire implementation and post-go live, we've had over 100 different types of interactions with our customers, or I guess communication types with our customers. This, I think, demonstrates kind of the transparency and visibility we wanted to achieve with our customer base surrounding the types of issues that we were experiencing as an organization and give them confidence that we understand their concerns. If we look at overall performance, I'm going to describe this in a couple of different ways. And Mr. Houston, I recognize right at the start of this meeting, you mentioned wanting to understand kind of the root of what happened within customer care and the longer call times. Well, it's actually not going to be answered in this graph, so I'll give a voiceover on that. But our average speed to answer today is much more back in line with what was considered normal operations prior to November 6th. And you can see month over month we have improved throughout the duration of the post-go-live activities. Average handle time is also, which is referred to in the document as call times, but as an industry or as, I guess, a profession, we refer to it as average handle time. That's also come considerably down from where it was at the beginning of the implementation. And then the commission asked about kind of hold times, and we weren't really sure if it was talking about like the time to reach an agent initially, or if there were during the period at which a customer was on the phone with an agent. So the upper right chart reflects intra-call hold time, which is the amount of time a customer care agent would put a person on hold during the interaction to do further research. But you can see that that's also back in line with kind of pre-implementation levels as well. So all of these numbers are favorable. I will say the bottom left chart, average handle time, as a result of our consultancy with other utilities, as well as our implementer and third party, we had created a forecast on what we would predict average handle time to go to, and this fit within the forecast. Our prediction was 597 seconds, and at its peak in December, I think was slightly above that, but well within target. The other thing I'm displaying in the bottom right of this page is our first contact resolution, and we really use this as a barometer to understand the quality of our interactions and how we're serving customer needs. And we displayed that for over the course of the year. And the good news is generally, pre and post implementation performance has largely been stable. And we've been serving our customers very well, which is really an indicator of both our communications as well as the training that our team members went through. All right. Oh, yes, sorry. Thank you, Chad. So all of these graphs are represented in seconds too, by the way, which I think we highlighted within the report, but I just wanted to call out that that's the case. It's not 597 minutes. That would not be good. So the other thing too, really at the height of some of the billing concerns that we started to experience with our ACE deployment, we took a very deliberate and intentional approach toward communicating with our customers specifically, and we started to announce a dedicated ACE billing support phone line. And this was introduced in all of our communications post beginning in February and post that time toward any customer who was experiencing a billing issue. And customers could receive direct support through that line. We did some intentional training for those folks, and I'm going to share performance in a minute, but I see you might also have a question, Commissioner.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I was going to ask you about the February date. It seems like that there was a little bit of there was not as much communication from mid-November through the end of October. The end of February. Almost 90 days. There was, I'm looking at the document that you sent back to answering the questions, the emails to residential customers. There was one on February 20th. The one previous to that was on November 30th. What was happening in December and January and the first 3 weeks of February?
It's a good question. I think there were a variety of things happening during that time. But I will say that we were communicating with our customers in a variety of different ways. You'll also notice in the full appendix that we implemented things like providing our customers with more direct access within our facilities. So if a customer happened to come to our facility, that they would be able to get an escalated, get a person to help with whatever their concern might be. So we took some actions like that. We also did a couple of direct call outbound campaigns during that period of time as well for customers that were known to have specific types of billing issues. So I think we did certainly do some communications. We could have improved for sure.
Chris, I will just add, recognizing your question, that the further we went on after implementation, I would say the number of communications absolutely increased. And if I were to go back to the December-January timeframe, where some of these issues began, I think during that time, there were a few general communications that went to all customers. And I remember sitting with the communications team at that time and saying, also, we want to make sure that we're not confusing customers. We need to better understand what are the issues that we're seeing in front of us and what are the direct targeted communications that we need to send specifically to those customers that were impacted. So for example, and I don't know if this was December or January, but I remember a communication that went out to all of our customers where we kind of broadly talked about some of the different issues that we were seeing. And I think that from what I saw from the response from customers on social media and those who were calling in, it caused a little bit more confusion. So I think that we were lighter on the communications as we were better understanding the situation in front of us and working to be more deliberate in the communication plan and strategy.
Very good. I also realized, Mr. Houston, that I did not address your question again in regard to why customers experience kind of longer times to reach an agent. And the reality is at the beginning of the implementation, we started to notice a couple of defects within our system or issues, and that led to higher call volumes. And that wasn't a specific question asked, and I did not put a graph in. I'm glad to follow up with a graph on what our call volumes look like, but the call volume increase we did not predict and forecast as a result of the billing issues that we experienced. So that's what led to the longer response times. We also started to, as you'll notice on bullet point 2, but we updated our website at the same time that we introduced this direct ACE billing line. And at that time, we actually have kept it fairly updated with any issues that our customers were experiencing regarding the implementation. And there was a full FAQ section based on what we were hearing from the commission, based on what we were getting internally, and the number of issues that we were seeing internally, as well as just common issues that we were hearing from the project that we could help to address in advance. We included some graphs within the response that spoke to this specifically. So this is the performance specific to the ACE billing line. And what you'll notice in this as well is these performance measures continue to improve as well. We saw 545 calls in the month of May, which was a 41% decrease from April. Again, I think an indicator of the communications that we're putting out to customers who are impacted by these challenges. We also started to see May's average speed of answer improve pretty dramatically as well. And we're answering the average call at 49 seconds. For the month of June, it's now at 39 seconds, and we've seen about a 15% additional decrease from May as well. The average handle time has fluctuated a bit, but I think we would expect that based on the complexity of the billing issues that our agents are attempting to try to resolve for our customers. So I'd also like to share that we're, fairly in tune with to the number of issues that are coming forward, to both in what terms of what customers are submitting to the IURC, but also other regulators and other environments as well. So the right graph demonstrates the mix of issues that have come to either the IURC, the BBB, or any other channel, even possibly internal escalations. But the left graph also suggests we're getting better. And the average number of days to resolve these concerns has dramatically decreased since the height of December as well. So we're improving overall in terms of getting our customers a resolution and responding back to the regulator as well. As noted, we also had some challenges with new service connections. And there were a couple of different challenges that were presented in the documents, so I'll attack both of those. The first is at the deployment of the AES system, we had a couple of disparate systems that were uncovered, and AES being one, but there were some other technology challenges that were represented at that time that were not known at the deployment. And that resorted to our teams using paper largely for record keeping as well as processes. And that was largely resolved at the end of 2023 as we redeployed kind of some of our digital systems from prior to go live to support mostly the dispatch functions of our field work. And less than 15% of our processes today for new service connections are done on paper, which I think is also the reason why we're starting to see some of those issues get resolved from our customers as well. Then we have the issue with regard to registered meters that were presented. We discovered this issue in early January as it was brought to our attention by a customer. A customer was advised that they did not have a registered meter at their home, and that was not an experience we desire. So we did, and since then we have had a couple of instances where that has also been the case, in particular from our builder community. So we are aware of this issue, and we are constantly reinforcing communications within our customer service team. We've designed processes for them, and most recently we've even given them specific talking points to be able to support our customers and advise them correctly as to where we are with the upgrade of meters in the field. It's also important to note that we're narrowing in on the backlog, and we expect the backlog of meters to be registered to premises by the middle of July.
Whose fault was it that the meters were not registered? Is it AES? Was it the customer, the builder?
Yeah, it wasn't I think it was a misstatement. It wasn't necessarily that meters were not registered. They just were not updated within all of our systems. So in this particular instance, I think the customer service agent ill-advised the customer as we had this backlog of meters that we were attempting to connect within our billing system. And so I don't know that it was necessarily a fault of anyone other than providing direct guidance to our customer service team to advise the customer appropriately. So with regard to that and supporting our customers, we paused late fees and disconnections beginning October 1st, and we have not resumed those activities. As Randy and others have mentioned, our focus today is on stabilization, and as we reach stabilization, we will have a comprehensive communications plan to support our customers.
And I apologize, but I got to interrupt here because the word stabilization has been used in a lot of context, and that is a highly relative term to the one who is saying stabilization. For all those here, could you explain to me what stabilization means to you?
Yeah, I think Vanessa is going to answer that question.
Yeah, in reference to stabilization, what we're working on is to ensure that the systems meet customer interests and that they can receive a timely bill. In the standard business process, again, out of balance does take place, so we do see on a daily basis approximately 50 bills could be withheld for out of balance. There's also a business exception process where we make sure that we quality check the bills before dispersing them, but holistically making sure that we are meeting customer requests and billing in a timely manner. These are some of the metrics in which we are measuring to demonstrate that drive toward stabilization.
Would stabilization at today's level with 8 open critical tickets be acceptable to AES?
No, our drive is to 0 critical tickets open to achieve stabilization. We will continue, because of the ticketing process being a part of work management, to have tickets open to help care and maintain of the system, but no critical tickets.
Thank you.
Along those lines, our Consumer Affairs Division has over 70 active cases today. And as you know, the administrative code requires a 14-day turnaround. Many of those are behind. When would we expect our Consumer Affairs Division to receive responses from the utility on those complaints?
I think I'd like to ask Derek, who manages that on behalf of.
Derek, come forward, and if you could just put the microphone in front of it.
Sure. Thank you, Chris. So the graph that you see here, March, April, and May, each of those include cases that remain open. And so while you see a decline, we know that there remain, I believe, 3 from March, in fact, that remain open. We are working diligently to resolve those. As you've heard from the testimony today, each of these are complex issues, and so they require additional detail to be able to resolve those. And so the team continues to work directly with Chris's team, with Vanessa's team, to be able to resolve those so that we can ensure the customer receives the right level of support.
Is this a software, is this a coding issue?
Vanessa might be better able to answer that than I can.
Well, I believe the question was in regards to response time and helping support the resolution of the issues customers are facing. Yeah. The root issue has been the coding in order to get the bill print to come forward and render correctly on the bill. The time to resolve that is not necessarily based on coding, but on making sure that we have robustness in our response and that we understand the issue fully.
But ultimately, it's a coding issue.
Correct.
Are you changing the code, or are you patching?
We are, and go ahead, David.
We are continuing to change the code through patching. It is a single code base for AES Indiana. As we see defects come in, we modify the code and then we patch that into the system. So it is through patching that we are making these changes.
And so then, how many times do you patch over here and something else pops up over here? Is that part of the process as well?
That is part of the testing process. As we go through a fix, the team will develop that change in a lower environment. They will test that change, and then they will put that change into production once it's deemed as fixing the issue, and additional issues do not arise from it. That also comes into some of the timeline in terms of resolution.
Go ahead.
All right. So then moving to some of the planned resolution and key focus areas. As Chris talked about, our
I
customers...
apologize for interrupting you. Could you go back to the previous slide, please? You say in the middle graph there that you do not have any plans to reinstate the payment charges. That's different from saying you will not. So are you going to reinstate them at any time?
Yes, eventually they will be reinstated. We haven't given a specific date because our focus is to ensure that we reach stabilization once we know the system is operating in the way that we're not seeing the 3% of customers today that are still being impacted. Once those issues have been resolved, we will communicate to customers, and we've committed there will be at least a 60-day notice to our customers before those late fees and disconnects are reinstated. Right now, there's not a date that's been discussed.
Just kidding. There we go. Thank you. While the vast majority of customers have not experienced a billing issue, we do recognize that there are 32 customers that have not received a bill since the new systems have been initiated. 21 of those are with new construction, which Chris touched upon, and 11 of those are due to interval data that need to be populated and finished in order to execute that transaction.
So that means like somebody who's building a new house hasn't got hooked up yet, and the developer is either still getting the bill or there's just no bill at all.
So
we
would still be getting the bill, but it has not been transferred into the customer's name yet.
So is that like developers are getting the bill or nobody's getting the bill? Okay. And so I understand from your presentation, though, that you're continuing the service. That's the primary objective, is to make
That is
sure
the focus.
nobody's cut off. But that customer's racking up a heck of a bill. And what I'm hearing here is a willingness to work with them. Brandy, I don't mean to pick on you, but I think you said something like you don't want to hit them all at once with something like that.
Yeah.
Correct?
So in addition, so I agree. And so we understand that the issues that this is causes a major inconvenience, but nothing more than if you're a customer and you've gone 3 or 4, 5 months and not receiving a bill, the expectation is that a customer cannot pay 5 months of bills in 1 month. And so what we've decided and what we'll soon be communicating more broadly to all of our 520,000 customers is really going back to some of the payment options that you saw many of the utilities across the state had in 2020 as we were moving through the COVID pandemic. And so really looking at longer term up to 36-month payment arrangements. And so that is absolutely something that we are committed to doing and providing for our customers.
Thank you. Bill, I don't mean to put you on the spot. Is that something that you wanted to weigh in or no?
Brandy, what we experienced during COVID was there were a lot of big arrearages and people entered into payment plans, but for a variety of reasons, they were unable to keep them current. Will you commit to work with them as you did during COVID to make sure these bills ultimately get paid off rather than the customer be disconnected?
Absolutely.
I do have, no, but I have other matters. I didn't know if the commission was done with their questioning.
We will probably have some, but go ahead, Bill.
Well,
I'd say if you're ready, go ahead.
There have been some great questions today, but I have a few new things to bring up, and I want to clarify some others. Could we start by going to slide 8? Entitled Our Digital Transformation Journey. Was this a historical document, or was this the original planning document?
This is the current document.
At the very end of this flow, there is an approximately 16 months figure given for production support. Is that when you expect these matters to be fully resolved, or what's that date signify?
Typically, when we've seen major implementations of this nature, there are, not only the issues of in a hypercare period, which is what we are facing now with the billing, but there are longstanding enhancements that we want to make to improve the use of the system, improve minor changes that might not rise to the level of a critical issue or improve that process. And so we have accounted for 12 to 16 months of extra work effort to continue to improve the system, and then it will go into our standard work management process, which is also a continuous improvement process to address issues, to address new improvements we can make to the system over time. But this period there's a hypercare period, which has a high level of focus because we assumed there would be some challenges post go live, and then once we enter a stabilization period, it's still an escalated level of effort from a development perspective, from a delivery perspective, as we manage that system to continue to improve over those 12 to 16 months after go live. And then generally around that period of time, it'll enter our standard sustain process, which while it's still focused on continuous improvement is not necessarily as high a level of effort as either hypercare or this 16-month sustain period.
Within that continuum of approximately 6 months to approximately 16 months, when can we expect the system to reach stabilization?
Our target, following the metrics that we showed on a previous slide toward the end, is within Q3, and we continue to reach for that target. And as we saw in the trending data, we are trending in the right direction for that target.
In the IT industry, is there a consensus as to an acceptable level of failure when you're rolling out a big project like this?
There is an acceptable level of risk generally as you go into a project like this that you will take on account around where those issues are there workarounds, and to accept that. I won't say there's an acceptable level of failure, but you have a level of risk of how you can work around to still achieve the objectives of the platform and still meet the customer's needs.
Well, let me rephrase the question then. Is there a level of expected failure in the rollout of a new system like this?
There is an expectation of issues that will arise that you have not seen in performance and testing beforehand. But I would not say that there is a level of failure you are set to accept.
You cannot say today that the level of failure you've experienced is greater than or less than what you might have expected when the system went live.
We set forward a series of KPIs to determine how we went live, as Vanessa has already mentioned, and we believe that we had met those KPIs when we went live on November 6th.
Well, in earlier presentations, there's references to, it was called the Go Live criteria, and there were 3,500 tests. So I'm presuming at that point in time, after thorough testing like that, you didn't expect many problems, did you?
We did not expect the number of problems that we have today, no.
Did you expect half of them?
As Vanessa had mentioned, we did not have a specific number of customer impact that we had forecasted. We did expect to uncover issues in this that we would be able to address readily during our hypercare period.
Would it be fair to say then that even with all the extensive testing, there was no way to know with any assurance how the system would run in practice with considering human error and the software glitches that might occur in the future?
Within any system rollout, there's a level of risk that you are undertaking that will happen. Now, you work through your testing priorities, you work through your KPIs, and you work through all your manual interventions and your backup planning, including your training, to reduce that risk. But there is no way to reach 100% certainty in rolling out any IT system.
It was mentioned earlier today, I think for the first time, we've mostly concentrated on the software problems that were involved in coding this program. But apparently as to the unreported meters, that was a human error problem by your agents in terms of making sure that information was put into the system. Were there any other human errors, or is everything else a software problem?
Yeah, I'm going to clarify that.
Please.
It wasn't an error in inputting into our systems. It was an error in the way the customer service agent described it to the customer.
The core of it was a technology gap. When Chris described and apologies, Brandy, for leaning on you. When Chris described the disparate systems, the connectivity between the system that managed that data flowing into the billing system, there was a disconnect, which we went to paper, and we were able to then enter and catch up. We do have remaining ones we're continuing to work on. The agent and reference made a statement to a customer that they did not have that registered meter, but the backbone of that was a system IT issue.
So relying on the software, they had incorrect information, and they conveyed that to the customer. That's the explanation.
They had incomplete information.
There was talk about refunds being made to customers who were who were debited twice or who did not properly use the system to submit a request for a payment. Have you had any claims from customers about overdraft charges they experienced as a result of this?
For that, I would ask David Ferris to take Derek's seat.
And David, you're going to be sitting right next to Bill, so you might not feel like you have to talk into the mic, but please talk into the mic so the folks who are streaming can hear you.
Yeah, to my knowledge, I am not aware of a count or a number of customers that have requested such, but in the event that a customer's bank account was debited multiple times due to an error on our part, even though it was a third party, that vendor is still representing AES, and if they do request that and are able to show documentation of the fees that they were charged, we will reimburse them, yes.
Would you consider for the customers who are affected by that, who may be unsophisticated, that you're in a position to provide a letter that would go to their bank or any creditors who treated that as an adverse credit situation, that this was not their responsibility so that it could be cleared up?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely something we can commit to doing.
Good. Thank you. Thank you. There was a lot of talk about patching the existing coding. Is that being done in-house, or is that being done by the contractors that you hired to design and implement this system?
That is primarily being done by Accenture today as part of their contract to finish implementing this system through our hypercare. We have also brought in additional third-party experts to help us address these issues in a more timely manner as well, including SAP.
I have one other question. Apparently, this system is being developed for use by all of the AES companies. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And is it one program or family of programs that is being used by the other two companies as well as by you? Or is there some individualization in each one?
Could you clarify what you mean by program?
Well,
is there one work product? Is there one product? Is that what you mean?
it was defined somewhere. Well, I guess the ACE system,
We
define it.
We have a single SAP platform that was defined, but there is unique individualization for AES Indiana, AES Ohio, and AES El Salvador. Also, in the recent changes to the overall mix, we've actually broken that out into two instances, one for AES El Salvador and then one for AES Indiana and Ohio together to better serve Ohio and Indiana.
Was the broad application of the ACE system, did it make it more complicated than it would have been if you had just done a standalone program for Indiana?
I don't know that we can make that statement. There are multiple utilities that employ the same practice where you roll out the technology to multiple service companies that you have, and we were able to meet with them and understand the practice that they had around it and execute a similar methodology.
Did they share with you that they had the same problems you've had?
We have not gone into detail around the issues faced necessarily, but we did talk about proactive ways to better support our customers, such as when Chris mentioned the agents that were brought on in advance, the 73, so that we could work in expected call volume increase and also duration of time it takes for a service agent working in a brand-new system for them while they were trained. It still takes time to get back to the speed in which they could operate within the legacy system.
Thank you. Your answers in your program today were very, very helpful. If we have any additional questions, would you agree to respond to correspondents that might present those to you?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you very much. Those are all the questions I have, Chairman Houston.
Thank you. I did have a mechanical question too. Randy, you may know the answer to this, maybe somebody else on the team does. With all the suspensions of delinquent accounts, how has that impacted your late account number?
Is this specific to arrears? Is that, Chris, to you?
You've suspended delinquents, you've suspended disconnects.
So we have
I would expect that your number
Yeah.
of delinquent accounts is going up.
Correct. I mean, we have not
But can you give me
disconnected
some,
for non-pay.
Pardon me?
We have not disconnected for non-pay this calendar year. So that was suspended in October ahead of go live. In addition, there have been no late fees since October of 2024. So this was all, or 2023, apologies, 2023, this was all in anticipation of the go live date on November 6th.
So how many late accounts are there? And I would expect that number's gone up. Or do you, if you need to get back with us, that's
I want to make sure I have the most, I want to make sure this is correct. So I'm hearing 25%. 25% increase, but I want to fact check that. So can we?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Orr, on your response to the OUCC on your 12 to 16 month production support, is that including Accenture and SAP standing next to you during that period of time, or are you on your own there?
That is including Accenture and SAP standing next to us, as well as other vendors which we brought in to help.
That was part of the contract, was it not?
Yes.
Thank you.
I would like to close. Just a couple more comments. And again, we really appreciate this opportunity to answer these questions and to have this dialogue from both the OUCC and the IURC. We have, as we've acknowledged today, we have experienced challenges with the implementation of this system. We also have to date issued 3.8 million bills successfully to our customers. And our team, the team that's here and the team that's back across central Indiana working right now to serve our customers reliably are focused on resolving these account issues very urgently. Our team and vendors are focused on resolving the issues and getting the system to stabilization. And so as Vanessa mentioned earlier today, the target right now is in Q3 of this year. We've responded urgently to our customer concerns and will continue to do so. And I mentioned this before, but also want to bring it to light again. While our focus right now is reaching stabilization as a company, we are committed to formally having a root cause analysis and digging deeper into the why behind some of these issues. And we will work with a third party and be transparent around that process. And the last thing I want to add is that for more than 100 years, AES Indiana has reliably served Central Indiana, and we do this not only because it's an obligation, it's an honor, and I want you to know that you have the full commitment of our team to ensure that we are meeting the needs of our customers today and into the future, not only the ways that we want to, but the ways that they expect us to as a company. So again, thank you for your time today.
Well, on behalf of the entire commission, thank you for being here today in this more informal dialogue, but on a very important issue, because ultimately the power delivery is the first and foremost obligation to serve customer, but right behind it is appropriately billing people and getting that right. And obviously, we wouldn't have asked you to this meeting if we didn't have some concerns in understanding what has transpired and the timeline for getting things corrected. We appreciate the commitment that you've made to after action and root cause analysis, and to satisfying some questions that the consumer counselor has asked as well. And thank you, and you have back the rest of your afternoon. Thank you.